Okay, today we're going to be working through a tutorial from Chapter 3's Adobe Flash CS3 Professional Classroom in a Book. This section talks about creating and editing symbols, and we'll cover some pretty important pieces of Flash, including importing Illustrator files, creating new symbols, understanding the difference between symbol types, and adjusting the transparency, importing assets into the library, using library assets, converting bitmap graphics to vectors, reducing the size of Flash documents, and applying web-safe colors. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with opening the file here, and that will be inside the Lesson 3 folder, opening Start. Alright, now one thing that I do, depending on however you want yours adjusted here, if you do a Control-2, it will bring your screen down to the size and fit within the margins. Okay, the reason that we're actually opening a file rather than starting with a new one is because it's already set to the right sizes. You can see down here we're set for 720 by 480. Okay, now rather than work with the original file, what we want to do is File, Save As, and then change the name of this. In fact, we can just add something like Working. That way it's our working file. Okay, so the basic premise for this first piece is that you can use different types of files. Obviously, you can draw things with these pencil tools and brushes and lines and shapes, but some programs, such as Adobe Illustrator, are really designed for drawing. So what's nice about Flash is that you can actually import Adobe Illustrator files now. So what we're going to be doing is File, Import, and then Import to Stage, and this is our stage. Okay, and we're going to be doing the layout file, and I'm going to go ahead and do open. And this is in the 03 start folder. You can use other Adobe Illustrator files, obviously. Okay, it's importing the external file. Okay, and we're going to make sure that we have all of these layers selected. We want to do place objects at original position because we don't want them just all going to the center or something. And we want to make sure that Flash Layers is selected. That way each of these layers here will be on an individual layer in Flash. So I'll do OK, and you see all these things came in, and if I drag this down a bit, you can see that they're all on their own layer. And again, if I do Control-2, it pops it back into the window and fits inside what we've got available. Okay, so to start with, we want to select these three boxes, and you can see that they're on the preview layer. And if I just click this keyframe right here, and you can tell it's a keyframe because of the dot, it will select all three of these layers, or I'm sorry, all three of these pieces. Alright, and so what we want to do is we want to convert these to a symbol. So we're going to do Modify, Convert to Symbol. And when it gives us the option here, we're going to type Preview Boxes, and I'm going to go ahead and make this a movie clip because we want this to be able to be movie clip previews when we actually play this. Alright. Okay, and so you can look over here and you'll see that this right here, Preview Boxes, is now a symbol, a movie clip inside our library. This is our library. Alright, so what's great about the library is if you drag something out here, you can put it out here, and it's really easy to grab stuff and drag it around. Alright, this right here is a folder, which means these things are inside that folder, inside of our library. Okay, now we imported things directly to the stage, but now what we're going to do is import things to our library. So what we want to do is, I'm going to go up here and click File, and then Import to Library. Okay, and in this folder there's a thing that says Vacation 1, and again we're in the 03 start folder. Okay, and instead of coming out here to the stage, it appeared down here in our library. Okay, now I could have done an import to library and selected this one and this one and this one by holding Shift. So since I've already done the first one, I can just click Vacation 1, hold Shift, and click Vacation Movie. Alright, and then I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Alright, so now I've got all three of those pieces inside my library. Okay, the other thing I want to do is I want to import a piece to the stage, but it's going to be a background layer. And so what I want to do now is I'm going to do insert timeline layer. I'm going to call this one beach background. And I'm going to go File, Import, Import to Stage. And this time I'm going to pick beach umbrellas. Okay. And obviously I still got my play movie and I have scene selection and all this kind of stuff. But you can see that I've got it now in front of some other stuff. Alright, so what I want to do is I want to be able to see all of my layers here, and I'm going to go ahead and drag this layer down to the bottom. And now I've got a nice backdrop for my CD menu. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this background graphic and convert it to a vector picture. I'm going to go up to Modify and Bitmap, and then it's called Trace Bitmap. And what that's going to do is take these pieces and break them into their individual components. All right, and so, like for example, we're going to leave our color threshold around 100 and our minimum area to about 8. Normal on our curve fit, and probably normal on our corner threshold as well. And I'm just going to go ahead and click OK and see what happens. Okay, and so you can see that it did something here. And if I click off of it, you can get a little better idea. These things now are actually pieces that you can actually change. And I'm going to undo that because I don't really want to change that. But if I was to drag out that, my umbrella piece would be longer. And so that's kind of what we did, is we just converted it into individual pieces. All right. Okay, the next piece here, we're going to be adding a picture to each of these green boxes. What we want to do is add a bitmap to the top of each of these. Okay, so what we're going to do is make sure that we're on our selection tool here, and we're going to double click the green box. Layer that we're on now, and I'm going to call it boxes. And I want to insert timeline layer, and I want to call this one thumbnails. Okay, and thumbnails just means I'm going to have little thumbnail pictures that go on here. Okay, now over here you'll see this thing that says Vacation 1. I'm going to go ahead and drag that out right to the middle of my first box. Okay. Alright, so now I'm going to click off of it so you can see kind of how it looks there. And if you need to nudge it, I usually select it, nudge it with my arrow keys, and then click off of it again. Okay, and so now what I want to do is I want to hold Alt while I drag this picture over here to the next box, and in my property inspector down here I'm going to click swap. Okay, so next what I want to swap it with is Vacation 2. Now I'm going to grab this vacation movie picture and drag it out here to the third box. Okay. Okay, next what we're going to do is go back to our original scene in scene 1, and you can see how everything looks together, and I'm going to go ahead and click off of that. Okay, so what we want to do here is insert new symbol, and for this symbol we're going to call it menu button, because this is where we're going to begin to build our menu. And we're going to call this a button, and I'm going to click OK. Now to start off, you can see that there are 4 states of this button. There's up, meaning you're not doing anything to the button. Over, meaning that you have your mouse moved over the button. Down, which means you're actually clicking on the button, pressing it with the mouse button. Or hit, meaning the area that you could actually click on. Alright, now normally I would draw a button or something here, but what we're going to do here is we're going to actually import pictures for each of these button states. Okay, so I'm going to go to File, Import, Import to Stage, because our stage is here now, and we're going to be looking for the button states in O3 Start. Selecting all layers, And instead of layers here, we want to have keyframes. So before we did flash layers, but now we're going to be doing keyframes because each of these layers has a keyframe. See, this is a keyframe, keyframe, keyframe. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. All right. So you can see that it started with the upper left corner here. You'll see that it's a little bit different when you're up and over it. Okay, so if I was to go back up here to edit and then edit document, that takes me back to my main timeline. Now if I go to the menu layer here, click Insert, Timeline, Layer, I'm going to call this one Buttons. Alright. From the menu over here, you see how this one says Menu Button? I'm going to click and drag this out here right over the Play Movie. So I'm just going to move it up above Play Movie a little bit, and I can nudge it with my arrow keys. Okay, so this is now an instance of this menu, of this item. So if I drag out more, for example, above Scene Selection, and another one above Special Features, and another one, another one above Setup, then each of those is its own instance, and I can change colors or sizes or whatever of that, and it doesn't affect the others. Okay, so just real quick here, I want to go and test my movie. So if I do Control Test Movie, it'll come up here and you'll see that as I move my mouse over this little dot, you can see it's a little hard to use, all right, because but you'll see that it does work, but nothing happens when I click, if I can get on there. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to fix that. Okay, so in order to get in here, if I just double click, we're back here on the screen now. Let me do Control 2 so it fits again. If I was to just double click this, it takes us right back into our edit button mode. See how we're in underneath scene 1 in menu button. Up here I have my up and my over, and nothing is in my down and nothing is in my hit area. Alright, so in order to be able to draw something in here, I need to do insert timeline and then blank keyframe. Alright, so you'll see what it did is it extended my over keyframe all the way over here to down, but my hit keyframe now will let me draw. I'm going to go with my rectangle tool here now, and I'm going to draw a rectangle that covers the text and the button. So for example, if I was to go over this area here on the Play Movie, now you don't have to worry about what this color looks like or anything because this is not going to be even visible. I can jump back here now to scene 1, and I can actually check this in two different ways. One way is to do Control Test Movie. Now the sun itself isn't the button, the area down here is the button. Alright, so all of this is just a solid button. I move my mouse over it and it changes my light. Alright, so that worked pretty well. The other way is to go up here to Control, and there's a thing here that says Enable Simple Buttons. And if I click that, I can actually view these things without testing my movie, which is a great new feature for Flash. I don't believe that was available in earlier versions, and it sure helps a lot. Okay, another cool thing that you can do, and let me go back to my select tool here and open up my button just to show you. Remember that our hit area is this area down here. Our over is that, and our up is that. So this is the area people can click on. This is what it looks like when it's up, when it's over, and when somebody's actually pressing it down. Alright, so let me go back to scene 1 here, because what we're going to do is we're going to create something that's called an invisible button. And if I go to, I'm clicking off now, so don't have anything selected. I go to Insert, New Symbol, and I'm going to call this one Invisible, Button, and I'm going to make sure that it's set for a button. So in my hit frame now, I'm going to click that, And I'm going to go to Insert, Timeline, and then Blank Keyframe. So now I don't have anything in up, over, or down, but in my hit area, I can actually put an area that someone could click on. Okay, so I'm going to use a rectangle, and I'm just going to draw just a random rectangle. And I'm going to select this, and I'm going to actually change my height here to 85. Set the width and height to 85. That's what the text says. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And my X and Y, I'm going to set for 0. Now you'll see what that does is if I set this to 0 and this to 0, it basically makes this plus area the top left corner of my box. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here to scene 1 again. Okay, so I'm going to go here and make a new layer. Insert timeline layer. And I think I'm going to change this layer and call this invisible buttons. Alright. So now I'm going to look over here and I'm going to grab my invisible button and drag it, drag it out over the first thumbnail here. Okay, and so you can see it's working even though you can't see it. My pointer turns to a mouse pusher. Because I want to be able to see this a little better, I'm going to go back up to Control and disable the Enable Simple Buttons. Okay, so now you can see where the button is actually sitting, and I can put that perfectly on the picture. Okay, so now what I want to do is make sure my selection is selected, selection tool, and I'm going to click off, and then I'm going to hold Alt down and drag this over the next button, or the next picture. And I'm going to do that again, hold Alt and drag it over the third picture. I have basically in these bright blue shapes, but once I actually play my movie, test my movie, that blue is not going to look like that. So I'm going to go Control, Test Movie, and you can see it looks normal. The only thing is that those are buttons. And we're going to actually configure the buttons in a later section so that when we click them, it'll actually do something. But you can see that it is actually working as a button, and those actually work as well. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and close this piece. This is our preview. And I want to change this piece a little bit. Okay, I'm looking for the menu background layer, which if I drag this over, you can see is here. Alright, and I'm going to click the first frame of this one. And you can see that the menu background has got that kind of interesting kind of colored box. So I'm going to go up here and do Modify, Convert to Symbol. Alright, and I'm going to call this symbol Menu Background. And this includes more than just this box. It's got this whole outline selected too. It's basically all of the stuff with the orange and these kind of colored stripes that come through here. Alright, and we're going to be calling it menu background, and we just want this to be a graphic. We don't really care about, having it be animated or be a button. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. So now that is one solid symbol. Okay, so next I want to set my alpha, and alpha basically is how transparent something is. So up here, it says graphic and loop and everything. I want to change my thing that says color here, alpha, and you'll see it pops up this box. And I can set this box to any alpha. Alright, so if I drag this down somewhere around 85, you'll see how the more I drag it, the more it changes. About 85 on this one, and you can see some of the background through this. Okay, we want to do a similar thing here with these colored boxes, the green colored boxes. Alright, so if I can double click that, that takes me into my edit mode. Okay, I want to make sure right now I'm on the thumbnails layer. I don't really want to be on that. I want to be on the boxes layer, so I have the individual boxes here. And I want to do modify, break apart. Now what that does is it made each of these its own individual piece. Okay, now I want to adjust the alpha, but you can see that I don't have alpha down here. But if you look up here on the fill color and alpha, I can actually click that and drag that alpha down as well. Doesn't seem to be adjusting it. I may have to modify and break it apart again. Modify, break apart. See if that'll do it. And then when I'm all done, I'm going to go back to scene 1. Okay, so now you can see the beach part through the color. Okay, the next step we're going to be talking about web safe colors. Okay, so this right here, if I click, whoops, if I can find it, if I click and can get this area selected here, this big symbol, double click it, make sure I get just that symbol. There we go. And I'm editing that option here. And I'm going to click the fill color box. And I can actually either pick one of these numbers or I can go up here and type the number in. So if I do number FF6600, go ahead and enter, you'll see the color of this changed. Alright, now if I go back to scene 1, and I'm going to go ahead and test movie, and again I can either do control test movie, or you see the shortcut is control enter. And I open it up and I've got a bright background, I've got buttons that are at least active, not clicking and working yet, and these up here are also buttons. This is transparent, these are transparent, this is broken apart, and we're all done with that lesson. So I hope that helps. Thank you very much.